Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Unfiltered and Unapologetic, the space where we heal in truth, in faith, and with tenderness, without leaving our culture behind. I'm your host, Caitlin Gil-Soto, born and raised in Lawrence, Massachusetts, and raised between Bani and El Cibao, and proudly Dominicana. Today, we're talking about something deeper than productivity. We're talking about the way you speak to yourself. I know I've mentioned this before in the podcast, but I feel like there needs to be a little reminder, especially that we're still in the beginning of the year. People are still doing their New Year's resolutions. Because being hard on yourself isn't discipline, it's resistance. And resistance slows everything. Florence Scovel Shinn says, "Your word is your wand." Abraham Hicks says, "You attract from the vibration you offer." So, if your dominant tone toward yourself is criticism, what are you aligning with? You cannot shame yourself into expansion. You cannot criticize yourself into abundance. That is not how alignment works. Alignment usually feels like relief, not pressure, relief. But many of us were taught that pressure equals growth. So when we say, "I'm behind, I always mess this up, I'm not disciplined," it feels responsible. But notice in your body when you say those things. It tightens, it braces, it contracts. That is not the vibration of growth. That is self-rejection. And you don't attract what you want. You attract what you're aligned with. If your internal story is, "I'm not enough," you'll keep noticing the proof. Not because life is against you, but because your focus is powerful. Florence said, "Words impress the subconscious." And Abraham says, "Thoughts become things." Put together, your self-talk becomes structure. I have the first journal prompt here for you guys. What identity am I reinforcing with my words? And the affirmation for this question is, I align my speech with who I am becoming. All right, now let's deepen this spiritually, but calmly. If you believe in God, ask yourself something honestly. Who taught you that being hard on yourself was holy? Who taught you that humiliation equals humility? Because self-criticism is not reverence. It's disagreement. When you constantly declare, "I'm not enough, I'm always failing, I'm so flawed," you are speaking against the one who designed you. Not dramatically, subtly. So, if God created you with intelligence, capacity, discipline, and direction, but you insist on rehearsing deficiency, you are arguing with your own design. And many of us confuse that argument with being realistic. But realism without faith becomes limitation. Conviction from God feels specific. It sounds like, "This needs adjustment. This is out of alignment. Let's correct this." It does not sound like, "You're embarrassing. You never get it right. You'll never change." God corrects behavior. Shame attacks identity. And when you attack your own identity daily, you shrink your capacity to receive what you're praying for. You ask God for more clarity, more abundance, more direction. But internally, you're declaring, "I'm not ready, I'm not capable, I'm not worthy." That is spiritual misalignment. Not because God withholds, but because you resist. Alignment with God is agreement. Agreement with your design, agreement with your growth, agreement with your capacity. And that agreement starts with how you speak about yourself. Self-criticism is not how God asks you to see yourself. You are corrected, you are refined, you are guided. but you are not humiliated into becoming who you are meant to be. I have a journal prompt here for you guys. Where am I speaking against what God has already placed inside me? And the affirmation for this question is, I come into agreement with my design. I reject self-condemnation. Now we're going to talk about force versus flow. Force says I have to fix myself. Flow says I am becoming. Force feels urgent. Flow feels steady. When you constantly push against your flaws, you energize them. When you constantly rehearse what's wrong with you, you strengthen it. You don't fight your way into alignment. You shift into it. Instead of, I'm so inconsistent, try, I am learning consistency. Instead of, I'm bad with money, try, I am building financial intelligence. This is not pretending. It's redirecting. Your subconscious responds to belief, not punishment. Your word is your wand. Use it carefully. I have another prompt here for you guys. Where am I forcing instead of allowing growth? And the affirmation for this question is, I choose alignment over pressure. When you're constantly hard on yourself, your nervous system stays in subtle tension, always correcting, always scanning, always tightening, and tension is not a receiving state. Abundance requires openness. Openness requires safety. Safety requires self-respect. You cannot declare abundance while internally rejecting yourself. You cannot ask for more while believing you are less. Self-criticism keeps you in preparation mode. Alignment moves you into reception mode. I have another prompt for you guys. Where am I delaying what I want because I don't feel worthy yet? And the affirmation for this question is, I am worthy now. So let's slow this down a little bit, because this isn't just spiritual language. It's also biological. When you constantly criticize yourself, your nervous system does not interpret that as motivation. It interprets it as a threat. Your body does not know the difference between I'm not good enough and I'm in danger. Both create a contraction. Your shoulders tighten, your breath shortens, your jaw sets, your stomach tightens. That state is survival. And survival is not a receiving state. You cannot manifest from fight or flight. You cannot build consistency from chronic tension. You cannot expand while braced. When your inner dialogue is harsh, your body lives in micro stress all day long. Not panic, but pressure. And pressure keeps you scanning for mistakes, scanning for what's wrong, scanning for what needs fixing. You think that scanning is discipline. It's not. It's dysregulation. And here's the deeper truth. If your nervous system does not feel safe, it will sabotage expansion to keep you protected. Because growth feels unfamiliar, and unfamiliar feels safe. So when you say, I can't mess this up, I better not fail, I have to prove myself, your body hears, this is dangerous, and it tightens. But alignment feels like relief. Abraham teaches that relief is an indicator of alignment. Relief. That exhale, that softening, that subtle sense of, I'm okay. When you shift your self-talk from, I'm terrible at this, to I'm learning, your body softens. When you shift from, I'm so behind, to I'm on my path, your nervous system regulates. And regulation is power, because a regulated body can receive. A regulated body can focus. A regulated body can follow through. So being hard on yourself is not discipline. It is self-threat, and self-threat blocks flow. I have a prompt here for you guys. Does my inner dialogue create safety in my body or tension? And the affirmation for this question is, I choose thoughts that regulate me. Relief is alignment. So now let's talk about the identity you rehearse. Every repeated sentence becomes identity. Not occasionally, not dramatically, quietly. I'm always late. I never follow through. I'm bad at this. I'm just not disciplined. I always mess things up. At first, it feels harmless. It feels honest. It feels self-aware. But repetition is rehearsal, and rehearsal becomes belief. Belief becomes behavior. Behavior becomes evidence. Identity is magnetic. You don't attract from who you wish you were. You attract from who you consistently declare yourself to be. So when you repeat, I'm inconsistent, your brain starts scanning for proof of inconsistency. When you repeat, I'm bad with money, your nervous system relaxes into financial avoidance. When you repeat, I never finish what I start, you subconsciously create exits. Not because you're weak, because identity seeks confirmation. The subconscious mind is not logical, it's loyal. It will protect the identity you give it, even if that identity limits you. This is why being hard on yourself doesn't create change. It reinforces the version of you that feels stuck. Now here is where it gets spiritual. Florence Scovel Shinn said, your word is your wand. That means your words don't just describe reality, they shape it. And if God created you with capacity, discipline, intelligence, and purpose, but you keep declaring the opposite, you are speaking against your own design. Not dramatically, subtly. So if you want to become disciplined, you don't say, I'm terrible at consistency. You say, I'm becoming someone who follows through. If you want abundance, you don't say, I'm broke. You say, I'm leaning toward stewardship. I am becoming responsible with what I have. That is not denial, it is direction. It is choosing language that aligns with who you are building. Consistency of identity changes outcomes faster than intensity of effort. You don't need to try harder, you need to rehearse differently. Because what you rehearse, you become. I have a prompt here for you guys. What identity am I rehearsing daily through my casual self-talk? And the affirmation for this question is, I declare myself aligned, capable, and expanding. This episode is not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about authority, spiritual authority, emotional authority, identity authority. Your words create structure. They shape how you show up. They shape what you tolerate. They shape what you allow. They shape what you expect. Discipline without self-respect becomes self-sabotage. You push yourself, you shame yourself, you overreact, and then you burn out. Faith without self-worth becomes delay. You pray for more, you pray for expansion, but internally, you don't believe you're ready. So you brace. You doubt, you second guess. And you call that humility. But humility is not self-rejection. You are not meant to curse yourself into becoming powerful. You are not meant to degrade yourself into becoming disciplined. You are not meant to humiliate yourself into becoming worthy. You declare yourself into alignment. You speak as a person you are building. You think as a version of you that is maturing. You respond as a person who trusts growth. That doesn't mean perfection. It means agreement. Agreement with your design. Agreement with your capacity. Agreement with what God placed inside you. This shift begins internally. Not when you arrive. Not when you fix everything. Not when you finally feel worthy. Now, right now, because the words you choose tonight will shape the identity you live tomorrow. Now, let's do our usual prayer. Take a deep breath and put your hand on your chest. Dear God, teach me to see myself the way you see me. Remove every harsh word I have spoken over my own life. Replace shame with clarity. Replace fear with trust. Let my thoughts reflect alignment. Let my words reflect faith. Let my discipline come from love, not pressure. Calm my nervous system. Steady my identity. Help me speak in agreement with the future you are guiding me toward. I release self-condemnation. I choose alignment. Amen. And then some affirmations here for that prayer. My word is powerful. I speak in alignment with who I am becoming. I release shame as motivation. I attract worthiness, not fear. If this episode resonated, share it with someone who's trying to grow but keeps turning against themselves. Leave a review on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It truly helps this message reach more people doing this work quietly. If you want to go deeper, check out my blank journals on Amazon, created for reflection and intentional growth. And if you feel called to support the podcast monthly through Buzzsprout, your contributions help keep this space steady and expanding. Follow us on at Unfill and Unapologetic Pod on Instagram and on TikTok. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for choosing awareness. Thank you for choosing alignment. I'll see you in the next episode.